Hey everyone, good morning. So today is day 22 of the video challenge, and I'm just out for my walk, which is always a great time for me to kind of think, and I come up with really good stuff when I'm walking. People probably think I'm crazy because I'm kind of talking to myself, but so I'm gonna try and do this video while I'm walking. So today I want to talk about finding how I find comfort in death and dying. This was a question that somebody kind of posted, one of my colleagues who I work with in the long-term care facility and clinic in Central Butte, Saskatchewan, which I just want to do a little shout out to that team that I work with. They are incredible individuals, and it's an absolute pleasure and honor to work with every single one of you. I try and tell you guys that often, because I just really, it's true. And I think that sometimes in healthcare we don't get a lot of praise. We just hear kind of the negative, the things that we've done wrong. And I'm really trying to make an effort in my own practice to really tell people how much I appreciate them. Give strangers comments on their clothing, which always seems weird, but it's amazing how that really brightens somebody up and puts a smile on their face. So death and dying. So I obviously, I think most people on here know that I'm a nurse practitioner, and I've been a nurse for 16 years this year, and I have definitely experienced my share of death and dying in my professional life. And that acceptance of that has been an evolution. I've been really actually very blessed in that I have not experienced a lot of personal death within my family, not yet. And so the point of view that I'm coming from is really from a professional point of view. Certainly, some of my patients I've had very strong personal relationships with, and certainly those deaths are difficult, and so I'm going to talk about this. But this is really about kind of a professional point of view. So, I started my career out working at CHEO, which is the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, in Ottawa in the emergency department. And, I was drawn there because I am a very quick thinker. I like adrenaline. I like, thinking on my feet and having a significant amount of variability in my day. And I fit in really well there. And I was really thankful to be able to start my career with a group of incredibly skilled nurses. And nowadays, I'm not sure that nurses really can start their careers off in critical care because there's just isn't that senior nurse group that can do the mentorship that's required for people to succeed in their careers, but also to be able to learn those ways to support your mental health, because it is a very hard line of work because of the trauma and the death and the dying that we see on a daily basis. I want to say first that healthcare providers, we are able to tolerate quite a bit of trauma in our lives, and so our level of coping is much, much higher than the public. And with every experience of trauma in our lives or death, that tolerance increases, but there's a breaking point that is experienced by a lot of us, and that we really need to have strong mentorship. We need to have things in place to really foster our own self-care. This is something that's not taught to us in our nursing programs. This is not something that's widely accepted within the culture of healthcare. We see a lot of healthcare professionals with mental health issues. We see a lot of healthcare professionals with addictions because of the experience of this trauma. And many of us do suffer from post-traumatic stress from experiencing the work that we do. But we're all called to this type of work. And so the group of nurses that I started with, certainly I was really excited to be an emerge nurse. I was so proud to be an emerge nurse. That helping and saving people's lives was amazing, but never did I ever think, or was I prepared for what would happen when we would lose a child. Thankfully losing children doesn't happen that often, because they're resilient beings. However, those losses that I experienced in those times were devastating. But what I was thankful for was that the senior staff that I worked with, we were a family. And it's so the first thing that I say that I really believe that has gotten me through a lot of that is having a really strong professional supportive network, a work family. And that's important because that work family really understands our role, what we do, what we experience, because our family members really can't even fathom what we see on a daily basis, or what that feels like, nor can they handle it if we were to disclose that information. It makes them feel really uncomfortable and at a loss. It can be really quite traumatic for them. But the other reason why we can't really share those things with them is because we have quite strict confidentiality guidelines that we have to follow. So we can't go home and say, hey, there's an awful car accident and I saw this. We can't do that. I'm always, my husband always, makes me well aware of how, my topics of conversation at the dinner table sometimes are inappropriate when I'm speaking about, bodily fluids. And so as a nurse, I think we don't really have much of a filter. But yeah, that strong family was what got me through, because what I was taught in nursing school is that it was not okay to show emotion in those times. And I was told that there would be debriefing for these situations. And the reality is there isn't. That doesn't exist. Not enough. If I think about all the deaths that I've experienced throughout my career, I might have done debriefing less than a handful of times. And that doesn't exist. But we need some sort of self-care, and we need some sort of support. And what these women taught me was that it was okay to show emotion. Obviously, if you're showing emotion and the family is trying to console you, it's inappropriate. But I remember, the first deaths in that emergency department, and it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking because I didn't have a strong foundation to believe in something bigger, which is the second thing that I think has helped me. And I felt like I had to be numb to it, that I couldn't be sad, because I was breaking some, nursing oath. But I remember, going through those situations, and, we would, clean up the trauma room, and yes, there was still a huge amount of people that still needed our care, and we had to put on a smiling face and go out there. But many of these women that I worked with, we would go and we would take a break and we would hug each other and share tears. And it was an ability to acknowledge how we were feeling, to support each other. We would, take a deep breath, wipe our eyes, and go and honor that person by helping others. And that was profound. That was very profound. And so that helped me through. But I didn't really, I think as a scientist and as a healthcare provider, many of us are kind of atheist, because, in science, you have to see it before you can believe it. And I learned very early on that it was when I looked at people who experienced death and dying or trauma in their lives, people that had believed in something bigger, whether that was religious, whether that was Aboriginal spirituality, they moved through grief and death and dying more gracefully, because they could see a bigger purpose. And it really wasn't until I started working in the North and Aboriginal communities that I really started to develop this sense of spirituality and believing that there was something bigger than I. And believing that really helped me to justify or be able to accept loss and trauma and death and dying, and knowing that there was, yes, it was sad, but that there was, these people were going to a better place, that there was a lesson for their loved ones that were left behind, whether that was to honor their legacy and keep going, whether that was to be a pillar of strength in their community, whether they're, whatever that was. And so it gave me a lot of comfort to know that there was somewhere bigger and better, and that these were the checkpoints and lessons for people to learn. And my job was to stand behind them and provide comfort. So I think that has been the two kind of foundational things that have helped me really be able to understand and to be able to accept and find comfort in death and dying. And now that I've transitioned through my career, I'm spending a lot of my time in the last part of my career, well, not the last part because I have many years ahead of me, is working in long-term care and working with geriatrics. And I'm really passionate about it. I never thought I'd go from pediatrics to geriatrics, but there's a lot of similarities there. But I'm so comfortable with death and dying now. It's really my privilege and my honor to be present with people and help them through that transition, to help them so that they are not scared, to help them so they are supported, to help them live out their wishes with death and dying. I've had the absolute privilege to be able to sit with people in their while they take their last breaths. And that can be really uncomfortable for somebody who isn't comfortable with that. But I find that it's an absolute honor because I really do believe that there's something else out there, and that they're going to a better place, whether that's heaven, whether that's some spiritual realm, or whether you're turning into a ghost and you're going to play tricks on me, whatever that is. And so I do find a lot of comfort in that. And I feel like, it's my mission to really help people and provide them quality versus quantity of life. And so, my practice is very much about, just because we can do things doesn't mean we should, and we shouldn't necessarily interfere with nature. Because the reality is, from the day that we are born, the nature of our lives is a birth-death cycle. And so, there's death going on within our body every single day, right? Death of our skin cells, regeneration. And I take a lot of comfort in that, and I am not scared of that. So, having that support, I think, is really important. Advocate, for me, it's really advocating for the nurses that I work with, to help advocate for debriefing. Because when you work in a long-term care, there's a very personal relationship there with the clients. You're their caregivers and their companions for many, many, many years. And so those losses are very personal, and they're hard. And, my job is to provide space. My job is to give hugs and support people and allow them space to cry. I think the benefit of being a nurse, medicine is very physical, right? It's a physical science. But, I feel like my gift is that I'm a nurse, and so I definitely focus on the physical, but I also work on healing in a very holistic way, in that I work on the emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of it. And so, I'm there to provide service to not only the patient and the family, but also the people that I work with. And that's a big job, and I take a lot of pride and honor of doing that. So those are my thoughts on death and dying. And so, Jennifer, I'd like to hear what you thought about that. I know that this talk was really specific to my work, and so maybe not everybody will get something from it. But I hope that you learned a little bit about me today. And yeah, so I'd really like to hear about, what your experiences are with death and dying. I just want to do another plug about the importance of self-care. It's not selfish, it's essential. Because, regardless of what you do for work, it is difficult. And so we really have to take care of ourselves in order to be able to have enough space and enough energy to be able to help the other people in our lives, regardless of what you do, whether you work at McDonald's or whether you're, a PhD professor, right? And everything in between, or, that you're a mom, which is one of the hardest jobs in the world. So again, I just want to say that, having support, doing self-care, and, having a belief in something greater can provide a lot of peace. Anyways, have a great day. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if you're having trouble commenting on the videos, because I've had a couple people say that they're having trouble commenting on the videos. I don't have any restrictions on commenting, but if you guys are having trouble, send me an MSN Messenger message, and I'll get my IT husband on it. Anyways, have a great day. Love you. Bye.